Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ramadan Kareem, and welcome to this very special Ramadan edition of Let's Talk. Alhamdulillah, Allah has blessed us with this arrival of Ramadan. And I hope, inshallah, that your fasting and your supplications will be answered during this great month. Joining us to talk about Ramadan, or youth in Ramadan, is Sheikh Ibrahim Zidan. He's one of the eminent sheikhs here at Twitter TV and the host of Quran in Depth. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
And also our in-studio audience. Assalamu alaikum. How are you guys? Alhamdulillah, good. Well, that was a lot of answers, but I couldn't hear all of them. I'd like to start out this show with asking, what is the purpose of fasting? There are a lot of misconceptions that fasting is just starving yourself, but what is the ultimate purpose of fasting?
Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah. The purpose of fasting is the same purpose of our life, and that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us for such a noble purpose, and that is to worship Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. The problem that some people might misunderstand the purpose of fasting because they misunderstand the meaning of worship. Worship is just such a comprehensive word that basically covers everything, all the emotions, all the deeds done by the heart and the physical actions, and one of which you cannot worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the most perfect way unless you worship Him by being grateful to Him, by being patient, fear, hope, love, all these different acts. We have to make it as an act of worship, one of which is patience. That's why fasting is an act of worship that shows, and a person witness in it so much this matter of patience, that you strive and you abstain from the necessities of your life just for a few hours, food and drink and desires and so on. And this necessity is to prove to ourselves that we can have control over our desires, which is, if it's used in an evil way, it's something that is not permissible, it's evil anyway. So that means a person would find to himself that this is something that is the matter of the deen is so easy by practicing this act of worship, by being patient and fulfilling the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
So other religions, I think some other religions have fasting, right, but they don't fast for a whole month. What is the purpose of fasting for a whole month, prolonging it such a long time?
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that in the Quran, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. O you who believe, fasting has been prescribed unto you the same way that has been ordained or prescribed on the nations before you, on those who before you, so that you would have this taqwa, the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be obedient to Him. So this is not just something that was unique when the Prophet ﷺ was sent. It's all the messengers before the Prophet ﷺ. This is an essential act of worship, and it changes from one messenger to the other. Why do we fast the month of Ramadan? Simply because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصمه. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, whoever witness the month of Ramadan among you, he should fast it. This is why. Because this is what acts of worship means, that we are nothing but slaves and servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He ordered us, and we say we listen and we obey, and that's from the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The wisdom behind it, that's something else. But why do we do it? Because we're nothing but slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The wisdom behind it, why it's a whole month? Because this is a pillar of Islam, and definitely one day after the other, when a person fasts every day from Fajr to sunset and abstaining from these necessities of one life, it's enough for the person to change one's life to be among those who have taqwa, those who have the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They would easily afterwards abstain from what is haram. It becomes, the matter of deen becomes easy for the person. So it needs this consistency and the push and the drive, so that the person for the rest of the year will have this iman and this faith to keep him steadfast in facing the different things and tribulations and tests in one life.
So fasting is kind of hard on the body. How do you keep concentrating on the religion while you're hungry, or you're feeling this hunger feeling?
Right. Again, this is by itself is an act of worship. So when you are being hungry for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered you to do, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful. He is in no need for our deeds. We are the ones in need of it. This nafs, this self that we have, this being, is like a huge mountain. For you to get control over it, you have to go over the mountain and come down. You have to be in control of oneself by seeking help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and fulfilling His orders. So fasting in the month of Ramadan, it makes the person have this personality in which we are more in control of ourselves, and that we need to seek the help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that by itself is an act of worship. So a fasting person, whether he is awake or asleep or working or doing whatever, he is in a constant act of worship. Not that like for the salah it starts and ends, and then a person is not in salah. But this act of worship starts from Fajr time all the way to sunrise, and within the fasting we indulge in another act of worship like the salah, like the dhikr. And actually, believe it or not, if we get used to the fasting of the month of Ramadan, and other than the month of Ramadan, it becomes the opposite. Becomes the joy to make the salah while fasting, and to recite the Quran while fasting, and to make dhikr while fasting, because fasting purify or has a mean to purify our souls from the different things that puts us down and make us attached so much to this matter of materialistic things that we see around us.
Which food is very materialistic. I think there are some sports players who said while they're fasting, they feel like they have more control.
Right.
They can concentrate, they can play better. I think Mahmoud Abdul Rauf was a basketball player back in the old days who said that.
Right.
At what age should people start fasting?
At the time of the Prophet ﷺ, as it's mentioned, that the companions, radiallahu anhum, the women among them, would train the children to fast from early age. It's not mandatory for them till they reach the age of puberty. We in Islam, we have an age that is very important in our life. That is 7 years old. It's mentioned in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that you order your children to pray when they're 7 years old. But they're not responsible yet. The one that is responsible are the parents. But the responsibility comes with the age of puberty, which is physically, the person is physically able to sustain these acts of worship, mentally also able to seek the rewards and so on. Before that, it doesn't mean that we are relaxed, and once we reach the age of puberty, all of a sudden we have to do everything. No, we train ourselves from early on. So 7 years old is an important age. Even before that, making everybody know that this is the month of Ramadan, we fast and we encourage them, we motivate them, give them prizes, right? And we delay the food for them to feel hunger. There's nothing wrong with that. We're not starving them. But for them to be hungry, and then you get them busy with playing with something like the women of the companions radiallahu anhum, with stuffed cotton things that they would play with, make them busy so that they would have some control even on their own selves, so that the matter becomes easy. Once the order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they become responsible, it becomes easy for them. So it's even before 7, but it's not mandatory. We don't force them. We don't make them scream and cry and then they have to fast. But 7 years old, we have to prepare them even before that. That once you're 7 years old, you have to fast the month of Ramadan. If they break the fast, of course, we don't punish. We don't cause anything.
Or perhaps they can just fast part of the day or something like that. You can encourage them that way. That's all the time we have for this segment. Don't go away. Please stay with us.
And I'm going to accompany you in a trip through the Quran, especially through the verses and ayat related to the month of Ramadan. We're going to raise our sails and board on that boat, and we're going to sail through the verses and ayat related to the month of Ramadan in the Holy Quran. It's وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نِعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. Each and every bless that you entertain, it's from Allah Azza wa Jal. And this is another reason for us to thank Him. The more that we eat, the more we are sufficing the body that goes down where it was created from. And the more that we deprive the body and give the soul with the worship that happens in Ramadan, the more that we go up in spirituality.
The entire staff at Huda would like to wish you a wonderful and blessed Ramadan.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. In the last segment, we were talking about the purpose of fasting, and it's to gain closer to Allah by forgetting some of the material things like food and drink. We're going to go to our audience to see if they have any questions. I believe you do.
Yes, I have one.
Go ahead, inshallah.
Excuse me, Sheikh. In these few days, we want to improve ourselves and make prayer and recite the Quran. So we find some people encourage us, but after Ramadan, we need kindness and we need straightness. So how can we do this? What should we do?
Such a beautiful question, and if the concern is there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He sees in the heart of the believers this sincerity and this truthfulness, that a person wants to have Ramadan as a changing point in our life, and this is what is meant actually by the month of Ramadan, this is the start. And it's very important also in the beginning of Ramadan that our hearts are attached to what's after Ramadan. Is Ramadan going to change my life, to make me among those who have taqwa? And how to do that is by being sincere and truthful. This is what we really want. By seeking help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and making dua. The dua is accepted in the month of Ramadan. In the rest of the year, in the last third of the night, our hearts are attached to Laylatul Qadr, which is towards the end of Ramadan. We build our iman one day after the other in Ramadan with the good deeds. Iman increases and decreases. Increases with good deeds and decreases with bad deeds. So we need to, every day in the month of Ramadan, we fast. This is definitely a boost for one's iman. That you want to eat. What is the thing that deprives you from eating? If you eat, nobody would know. Fasting is this act of worship that you cannot show to anybody. You're not doing anything to be fasting. You're abstaining from something. So this is where the muraqabah, that a person is watchful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he builds that in one's heart, that you're worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala whether people are seeing you or not seeing you. And then we have the salah, we have the night prayer, we have the recitation of the Quran. Every letter is 10 rewards. Great rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The gates of Jannah are open, the gates of the hellfire are closed, and the devils, the fiercest of among them, are chained in the month of Ramadan. So all the means and opportunities for a person to do the good deeds and to be away from sins, which is basically what increases the iman, it's there in the month of Ramadan. Once we have this, and leave yourself in matters of ibadah in the month of Ramadan, and the Laylatul Qadr, and then once a person have this and increase one iman, then this is what we need to think about what's after the month of Ramadan, and seeking help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us steadfast that the whole year is like the month of Ramadan.
I have a kind of a sort of follow-up question. In some parts of the Arab world, I've read studies, it's last Ramadan, that the actual food intake increases, at least the consumption, not the consumption, but how much food people are buying increases in Ramadan. Why is that when we're supposed to be fasting? Are we supposed to gorge after fasting and just...
This is a fact, and this is one of the sad things actually.
Yeah.
Fasting is as we all know, means that we abstain from eating and drinking and sexual desires. But to some, or to a lot of us, we think about food so much in Ramadan. What are we going to eat when we break our fast? Then shopping before the month of Ramadan, shopping during the month of Ramadan, and inventing ways of food and desserts and things of that nature. To look at it from one aspect, it's a good thing for a person to eat, of course, at the moment of breaking the fast. It's a moment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes from the believers to eat.
And you're not supposed to delay also.
Of course, you have to do it immediately.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between us and the nations before. And the Prophet ﷺ said that this ummah will be on matters of goodness as long as they would be in haste in breaking their fast. So it shows the obedience, that you're not just abstaining from what you like to be in state of worship. Know that you also do what you like, but because it's the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you do it immediately. So in both, you are witnessing yourself as nothing but a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But one advice is that we need not to be attached into matters of food too much. When we think about food and we're hungry, mashallah, this is good, a person is rewarded. But we need to remember, we have also acts of worship to be done during the night. So when a person fills one's stomach, then where is the khushu' going to come in place in this case? So it's also a training thing not to be so much used and abused by the food and our desires and so on, but to be patient. And nothing wrong, again, we should not make what is halal haram.
Yes.
People should not make it difficult on ourselves, fasting, and then a person would strive again at night. No eating and witnessing the favors from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on us, and to remember the poor and to give also. And that's definitely something that we should do.
There's also a trend of sort of sleeping in the day while you're supposed to be fasting and staying up at night
Right.
and eating and then going to sleep, after Fajr or something. And then, is this a halal way to spend Ramadan?
When we talk about halal and haram, sleeping is a halal way, of course, as long as a person does not misses the salah intentionally. And this is also another way that we need to train ourselves that fasting is not just about abstaining from eating and drinking.
Yes.
It's about abstaining from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade on us, and also to build our iman. And there's nothing wrong from sleeping, especially if a person is spending the night not in watching
TV or something.
and playing and so on. He's been tired reciting the Quran, standing in the night prayer. So definitely this person needs to take a rest during the day, especially in the summer days when the day is too long.
This Ramadan is going to be very hot.
So that's why people should take a nap during the day. There's nothing wrong with sleeping.
Okay.
But one advice is don't sleep right after Fajr. Take the opportunity after Fajr, which is not mandatory, but take the opportunity after Fajr prayer in the morning to sit and make remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the Prophet ﷺ used to do that to sunrise. Then after sunrise, if you don't have work or whatever, you can sleep then. But this is a very virtuous time that gets you closer and closer in a short period of time.
Okay. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
Alaikum salam.
First of all, I want to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be in such a place in which that we are mentioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that whenever persons or peoples of Muslims gathered in such a place and mentioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, angels are sitting around them. So I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be in such a place, and every Muslims who are watching us now be like with us in the studio. But I want to know, Sheikh, how can we protect our places that we are mentioning Allah during the fasting? If we gather in a place to mention Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how can we protect ourselves from the shaitan? Jazakumullah khair.
It's by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the fierce devils are chained in Ramadan. That's why you find all the help during the month of Ramadan. But it doesn't mean that the kaid and the plots of shaitan is eliminated altogether, for two reasons. Not all of them are chained. The second thing is some people are already trained by shaitan before the month of Ramadan. So they go into the month of Ramadan with their own selves being, we have some corruption ourselves. So it's ourselves that is driving us to do what is bad and so on. So, but we still need to protect ourselves from the plots of shaitan by seeking refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with these acts of worship. And that's why we tend sometimes to make the religion something that we listen to. We listen to a lecture, we listen to a talk that touches our hearts, and we get affected, and we think that our iman is increasing. And then what's after that? Religion is not just about listening, it's about ourselves doing something. That's why we have to fast individually, and we have to make the salah, and we have to do these acts of worship with the heart is working, not just physical acts of worship. The heart is doing that sincerely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and seeking the rewards from Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, and following the way of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. That's why when a non-Muslim, for example, he looked from far away distance, and he says, these people are praying 5 times a day, physically, and they're fasting physically, so many things that they have to go through.
They're just torturing themselves.
Right, and they will feel bad for us.
Yes.
Right? But in reality, when you go to talk to one of the believers, the people that would enjoy that, they first never, of course they would endure patience and so on, but they would never give that up for anything on the face of earth. They know exactly what it means not to do these things, which is the same way that the non-Muslims. By why did they choose otherwise? That means it's called for them to try it, but of course people need to embrace the beautiful way of life and to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the point is that in the month of Ramadan, we need to establish this type of relationship, that we need to do things and we look ahead, that it's not just the physical acts of worship, the outcome of it is something that is so sweet on the face of earth, and that is the iman, and to feel the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in the hereafter, of course, we have been promised in the Quran and in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ the great rewards.
What are some of course, we're not just fasting from food, But what breaks our fast besides food? I heard some people say cursing or something, but do you have to make up, what are some of the things that break our fast and we have to make up another day after Ramadan?
Right. It's the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the things that breaks the fast are mainly physical things. And these physical things is basically like things going into one's stomach through the normal passage, eating, drinking, sexual desires and so on. These things, physical things, we have been forbidden from doing during the day and the month of Ramadan. But the essence of Ramadan, or the purpose of Ramadan, is not just to abstain from these physical things, it's what behind that, and that is to abstain from the evil things and to be in control of our own selves. We don't just follow our desires, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that it's either or. Either you follow your desires or you follow the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَجِيبُوا لَكَ فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّمَا يَتَّبِعُونَ أَهْوَاءَهُم. If they do not respond to you, O Prophet of Allah, then know that they follow their desires. So in the month of Ramadan, we need to stop that. We need to fulfill the purpose of our life. That is to stop following our desires like this blindly, and instead we follow the way of the Prophet ﷺ, and we won't be deprived from our desires. Our desires will be that we would still fulfill it, but in the proper way. So doing that and fulfilling these acts of worship for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would make the person have this ability to be in control and to seek the pleasure from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone.
Okay, thank you for that. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. May Allah reward you for these words, and may Allah reward you for your time. I want to ask about the gathering in Ramadan, when we gather when we have breakfast or when we pray night prayers. I want to ask how we invest these times, because a lot of people talk in ghaiba and namima. So how can we invest these times for the sake of Allah?
It's a very good question. We get together in Ramadan at certain times, breaking the fast, during the night prayer. And how can these times be invested? It's definitely such a good thing. And we have inward actions and we have outside appearance and actions. The inward actions are more important. And that is if we have the sincerity towards one another, and the nasiha, meaning the concern towards one another. And that's why one of the jobs to be done in Ramadan is to feed others. And if you feed someone, if you give someone food to break their fast with, you get the same reward as their reward when it comes to fasting, without diminishing their reward. And that's the great mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you would see people at the time of breaking their fast, they're competing with one another, not to eat, but to feed others. And this is such a beautiful scene that you might not see it in any other place on the face of earth. Every day in the month of Ramadan, I remember people, even young children, and stoplights, they would give people dates and things like this, those who are late going to break their fast. And this is something to train ourselves and train our children and to train the people in our family that we give. This is a month of giving. So, and the same thing when it's time for the Taraweeh prayer, or what's even more important, the 5 obligatory prayer. There are certain acts of worship that we do it together. And this togetherness, right, brings the strength to our iman. Imagine the dua when a person would say Ameen in Surah Al-Fatiha. If one of the congregation, the dua is accepted, the rest of them, they get the same blessings. So you see the difference between someone praying alone, and someone praying in this congregation. There might be one righteous man in this whole congregation that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted his dua, everybody's, and this is the blessings and the mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we should not deprive ourselves from these gatherings. It's gatherings to teach the young ones how to eat and how to have the etiquettes and manners of eating, and ithar, preferring others on ourselves. And also in the masjid, to teach those who do not know how to make the salah and the etiquettes of masjid. And there's talks in the masajid, taking this opportunity, investing in these times when a lot of Muslims, they only come in the masjid in the month of Ramadan, talks that would elevate their iman and teaching them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us to stay the whole year like this, attached to the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
What is your advice to some of the Muslims in the West, especially young people who go to school during Ramadan and they're fasting, and of course everyone's eating around them, how do they give da'wah to the non-Muslims, or just explain to them how that they're fasting right now?
Right. definitely may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for them. To be a stranger, it's not an easy thing. So that's why may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward them. But the da'wah in the religion of Islam is by speech and by actions, and actions, it speaks louder than speech. So fasting and explaining to people what Ramadan is, the purpose behind Ramadan, the wisdom behind Ramadan, people actually, they see that it fits the nature of the human being. And anything in the deen of Allah, even if we don't see it and see the wisdom behind it, it definitely fits the nature of the human being. Like the hijab, for example. Many people, many women, for example, non-Muslims, they won't like the hijab. But believe it or not, it's in their nature. But their nature has been covered with so much of what they see and they hear, contaminated. But deep inside, if they are honest with their own selves, they would find that this is the most perfect way of life. The same thing when it comes to fasting. So by actions and by applying the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that if you're fasting and someone try to harm you or quarrelsome with you, you're supposed to say, I'm fasting. This is not showing off, this is not riya. You say, I am fasting. That means I cannot indulge in what you're indulging in. I cannot say a bad word. I cannot retaliate. I cannot do these types of things. And that by itself is a great da'wah. Right? You're telling people that because I'm fasting, I'm in control of myself. I cannot be foolish as others can be. And explaining how Ramadan is and giving, and it's a month of charity and giving others and feeding for the poor. Definitely, and this is something that has been spread in the West in schools and universities. People get to know what is Ramadan. Explain to us. A child in the class or whatever, he would prepare something and speaks to the class. People appreciate that so much.
And sometimes they even encourage non-Muslims to fast. They invite them to break their fast also. That's all the time we have for this segment. Please don't go away.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala choose whom He wills subhanahu wa ta'ala for His mercy, for His messengership, for the revelation to be revealed. This is not for the human beings to make that decision. If a person would turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sincerely, truthfully, asking for forgiveness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised to forgive. We have as Muslims a duty, and that is to recite the book of Allah, to ponder over the verses, the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to act according to the Quran. The mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encompasses everything, but who would this mercy will be for? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent to all mankind. So the ummah or the people of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam are all mankind since the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam till the day of judgment. Why waste our life without getting to know every verse in the Quran, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us?
The entire staff at Huda would like to wish you a wonderful and blessed Ramadan.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. We're talking about Ramadan during this very special episode. Of course, we have Sheikh Ibrahim Zidan with us, our in-studio audience, and we have a new guest, Malik Evangelitos. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Brother Khalil. It's also nice to see you, Sheikh Ibrahim. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Of course, you converted to Islam, you said 6 years ago.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. And so you've been fasting since then, the month of Ramadan. But what was your first impression about Ramadan and that you had to fast? What was your first thought?
Actually, I was actually very discouraged because when I was just thinking about entering Islam, I remember people telling me, you want to be a Muslim? Well, you're going to have to fast the whole month. And I thought to myself, I can't do that. I cannot do that. And I remember it was the end of Ramadan, and I was seriously thinking about entering Islam. And it was the last week of Ramadan. And I said to myself, I better wait because I can't do it in Ramadan because I didn't have the confidence that I could actually do it. Alhamdulillah, 6 years later, it's gotten easier physically and spiritually, and it's alhamdulillah, it's a pleasure now.
Alhamdulillah. So, what are some of the benefits you've seen come from yourself from fasting, like physical or spiritual? What do you enjoy about fasting?
Certainly, actually, you wouldn't be able to tell now, but since I'm married and I've got a little belly, gained weight.
Yes.
But 5 years ago, I was exercising regularly, and when Ramadan came around, I thought, okay, for sure, my endurance, my strength will go down, weightlifting and things like that, and playing basketball. But could you imagine when I would work out after Maghrib, I felt great, healthy, and strong, stronger than I was before. I still don't understand how that worked out, but alhamdulillah, that was, so there's a great physical benefit and to that. I feel healthier, you feel cleansed. I wouldn't give it up for anything. I'm very happy with this decision to enter Islam and fast Ramadan.
And I know you, actually both of you guys both have Egyptian and American backgrounds. So culturally, what are the differences between fasting in the States and fasting here? I would like to begin with you, Sheikh Ibrahim.
Well, of course, it's a major difference, although the fasting is the same.
Yeah.
But I guess the environment is different. But it's one of the amazing things is, no matter where you are, if you enter the masjid, masjids are masjids by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Muslims are the Muslims. You know, they get together for iftar, they do the night prayer. The problems might be different from one place to the other, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He ordered us to worship Him no matter what the person is at. And that's how the matter is easy, and it's easy by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But of course, it's a major difference when you're in an environment where people do not recognize the same thing that you're doing. And that's what people tend to have, this emotional presence in the month of Ramadan when everybody's fasting and everybody's witnessing the same thing. It's definitely, especially for the young ones, that they relate to that too much.
And Malik, what about you? What is the difference do you find between how people perform Ramadan in the West and the East?
Well, I've had the pleasure to actually celebrate Ramadan in a Muslim majority country here in Egypt and also in the United States and California. And I actually had the most amazing Ramadan experience last year in San Francisco, California, if you can believe, which San Francisco is well known to be the homosexual capital of the world, actually. And here we are in the middle of San Francisco with, mashallah, an old converted church with a group of mostly people from Yemen. And we had a great brotherhood and fraternity. We had iftar, we broke our fast every day together for 30 days. We made great friendship. There was a bond and a brotherhood that was amazing last year. And I think that's partly because when you're a minority in a country where they're not observing Ramadan, you become stronger and you have a strong link with each other. On the other hand, for example, in the United States, the working hours don't change, Sheikh, as you know as well. So if you're working during Maghrib time, nobody really cares. Nobody stops. You have to go break your fast quickly, then go back to work. Whereas here in the Muslim majority countries, we have the advantage of things working for us and taking days off and things like that.
That leads me to another question, actually. In some Muslim countries, they decide to change the day around, like decide, oh, well, people can go home earlier. Is this something they should do, or should they just leave the schedule? Because Ramadan really is about adapting, not about deciding, okay, well, no work now since it's Ramadan.
Right, you're right, and that's why when we're not used to fasting, what happens is people get irritated because they're addicted to something, like smoking, for example. There is a smoker comes in Ramadan and he gets angry and snaps so quickly, and people would find him saying all the time, "Leave me alone, I'm fasting." You're supposed to be, when you're fasting, you're in a better attitude than not being fasting. Not that you get angry so quickly and so on and so forth. But that's why we need to prepare ourselves before Ramadan and in the beginning of Ramadan, that this is not just about abstaining from food and drink. It's about changing our life to be according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. And it's definitely something that is good. We know what is right and what is wrong, but we know that to be on the right track, it needs effort and struggle. And this is the opportunity. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it easy. No of the fierce devils are present, and things are made easy. So this is the chance where we change our life. If we don't change our life in Ramadan, when else? And the Prophet ﷺ, when he said in the hadith that if a person's sins are not forgiven in Ramadan, basically more or less in the meaning that he is a loser, if that's the case. Where else or when else can a person reach this level?
Well, how can people prepare? What are some of the things, what are some of the days that we can fast that aren't in the month of Ramadan?
Right. The Prophet ﷺ used to fast most of the month of Sha'ban, which is right before Ramadan. So you prepare to fasting by fasting. Some people think, no, I'll eat too much before the month of Ramadan so that I relax.
Gather some fat,
Right. You want to prepare yourself for the night prayer, make the night prayer. وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, seek help in patience and in salah. Anything, any deficiency that you see in oneself that you want to change, do these two things, patience and fasting. And patience, one of which is fasting and making the salah. So, and Mondays and Thursdays, the Prophet ﷺ used to make fasting, 3 days in a month, the day of Arafah, the day of Ashura, the 10th of Muharram, and so on.
And following Ramadan, we do have the 6 days of Shawwal, of course.
Right, mashallah.
And can you talk about that for a second as well, Shaykh?
The 6 days of Shawwal, the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, the meaning of which whoever fasts the month of Ramadan and follows that by 6 days of Shawwal, he will be given the reward as if he fasted the whole year.
MashaAllah.
30 days multiplied by 10, 6 days multiplied by 10, 360 days. That's the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it resembles after the obligatory act of worship with the sunnah act of worship. You do the fard prayer, you have after it, an optional act of worship, salah. The same thing for Ramadan. Before Ramadan you have Sha'ban to fast, an optional fast, and then after Ramadan you have the 6 days of Shawwal. It's in the same harmony like the salah and so on. Excellent. To get used to this act of worship.
How can, like we're talking about new Muslims, how should they prepare for the fast of Ramadan?
For someone that embraced Islam, meaning that he submitted himself or herself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what fasting is. Submission, which is what Islam is all about. That you are a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We cannot even take a breath without the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you enter the month of Ramadan with this attitude. Let's say, oh Allah, I'm your slave, I'm your servant. You ask me to, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us to even take our own lives, we do not own it. The owner of this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But He's the most merciful. He did not order us to take our own lives or to give up our wealth or whatever. No, it's just to fast from dawn to sunrise, to sunset for our own benefit. Right? For us to be steadfast and to be patient and so on. So we have to have that inward attitude that is not just about I'm not going to eat or drink to be physically strong or whatever. No, this is about submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then we would see the humbleness with it and the goodness, and manners will be directed. Actually, a person will have the proper manners when he's fasting. He's not into
feel
this
tranquil, and he won't feel so
having this inward attitude that we're submitting ourselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and seeking help from Allah. Making dua is one of the most important needs or means to achieve whatever we want to achieve. And that is to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us and to guide us, to make fast easy for us, to accept it from us and so
on. What are some of the health benefits of fasting? I heard some places that actually some toxins get released from the body from fasting. What are some of the other health benefits?
One thing is that we know for sure that there's no order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unless it's the perfect way of life on the face of earth and in the hereafter. Not just to test us so that we get rewards in the hereafter and become miserable on the face of earth. No. And that's the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He made what is pure halal for us, made what's impure forbidden for us, and one of which definitely is fasting. If people would research, and especially those who are like medical doctors, researchers and so on, they would find amazing things. And actually some people even compile books and researches over this. Even kidney stones, which is people need to drink. Actually it's the opposite. When fasting, it helps you actually not to have these types of things.
Yes.
And many other benefits, mashallah.
If I could just add to that briefly. Whenever you tell somebody you're fasting for a religious purpose, they say, oh my God, what are you doing that for? But if you tell them you're on a diet because you want to have a better physical appearance, they say that's okay. And I experienced that in the United States. I thought that was interesting. But as the Sheikh said, I think there's been numerous studies that say, there's so many medical benefits to fasting, and the doctors keep finding new ones. And as the Sheikh said, Allah would never give us something that's harmful to us.
And that's why if a person is sick or have a condition, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it easy for them. You don't have to fast if you're physically sick or it's going to cause harm to you. It's not like fast, die or live, it doesn't matter. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it easy.
Yeah, for example, diabetes, blood sugar, people of old age. I mean, there's obviously conditions, and so.
Well, what are we supposed to do what are the obligatory things in Ramadan, and what are the things that are mustahab or not obligatory?
Of course, the 5 daily salah is the second pillar of Islam, and that's something in Ramadan, other than Ramadan, a lifetime job. and we fulfill this pillar of Islam, we would fulfill it when the moment of death comes and we had guarded our salah throughout the whole time. You have another pillar of Islam, which is the month of Ramadan. So during this month, you're fulfilling this pillar of Islam once a year. Hajj is once in lifetime, and so on. So the month of Ramadan, we need to witness that we're fulfilling one of the pillars of Islam. So fasting, of course, and again, during the day, we are in act of worship, even if we're sitting doing nothing. Because what is preventing you from eating is the order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have the 5 daily salah to make sure that we do it in the most perfect way. And it's only 5, not 50, right? And these when it comes to the obligations. And part of the obligation is to stay away from what is haram, what is evil, what negates the fast, what takes the feel and the essence of fasting, by people backbiting and saying bad things and fighting and so on and so forth. And basically trying to live the life of a Muslim. There is the optional acts of worship, of course, like charity, the night prayer, the adhkar, the things to be said in the morning and in the evening, the recitation of the Quran. The Quran is, this month is the month of the Quran. Some of the ulama, like Imam Malik, for example, right? He used to teach the people, right? The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And what is more virtuous than this? But he would leave that even in the month of Ramadan, so that he would give all the time for the Quran. This is the month of the Quran. So for those who do not know how to recite properly, this is the time every day that we spend time to recite the Quran, and those who recite it fluently to recite more and more. So this is the most virtuous act of worship after the obligation during the month of Ramadan, and that is to recite and to be attached to the Quran. Listening in the night prayer, during the day we recite the Quran, and so on.
SubhanAllah, I feel like Allah has honored us with the fast, because people, when I was in the United States, people recognize the Muslims. Even everybody on the face of the earth knows, Muslims, non-Muslims. They know one thing about Islam: the Muslims are not eating or drinking, and they're increasing spiritual works during this month. So I feel like it's one of our characteristics, and it distinguishes us from other people, and it's a great honor actually to fast.
So what are some of the things that, some of the extra things you do besides in the West, or you can suggest to people besides fasting?
To be honest, this is, like I said, my 5th or 6th Ramadan, and actually the obstacles or blocks that I'm facing now as a Muslim, I feel like, alhamdulillah, I'm not committing major sins or many minor sins, and I'm completing the fast and obligatory prayers, but I haven't really advanced on the spiritual plane, and that's what my next goal is to increase my spiritual works and really optimize Ramadan. So I'm actually looking for ways to learn how to do that myself.
What are some of the other blessed months during the year that people can take advantage of besides Ramadan?
The best of them all, of course, is Ramadan, because we fulfill this obligation, and there is nothing that is closer to the obligation whatsoever when it comes to rewards. And that's the Hadith al-Qudsi, وَمَا تَقَرَّبَ إِلَيَّ عَبْدِي بِشَيْءٍ أَحَبَّ إِلَيَّ مِمَّا افْتَرَضْتُ عَلَيْهِ. That no one can get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by more what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had made it obligatory on us. So if a person fasts the whole year, optional fasting, and misses one day in Ramadan, he is basically in loss. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to exalt these obligations. But also there are blessed months. There are the 4 months, which is the month of Al-Haram, the month of Al-Muharram, which is the first lunar month of the lunar year, and you have the month of, which is after Ramadan by 2 months, Dhul Qa'dah and Dhul Hijjah and Rajab. The 3 months are together, Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah and Muharram, right after one another, and Rajab, which is 2 months before Ramadan.
Oh, sorry, and these are considered the blessed months of the Islamic calendar, those 4 months.
Right, these are the sacred months in which the rewards or the good deeds are multiplied, and the bad deeds also are multiplied.
But Ramadan is not included in those 4 months then?
No.
This is a separate...
and the 4 months, one of them is the month of Al-Hajj, that we perform Hajj in. And also we have the month of Al-Muharram, where the Prophet ﷺ said there is no better fasting after the obligatory fast than to fast in the month of Al-Muharram. So this is a virtuous month also to fast, and in it is the day of Ashura, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved Musa alayhi salam, Moses, from Fir'aun. So we fast that day and the day before or day after, and this expiates the sins of a previous year. We have the day of Arafah. Fasting the day of Arafah expiates the sins of 2 years. Other than that, there is no evidences of such a virtuous month as far as virtue is concerned, more than what is mentioned now.
Thank you very much for that answer. We don't have any more time for this segment. Inshallah, we'll go for a break and we'll be right back.
American sister who is very active in da'wah in Egypt told me personally that she traveled between Buddhism, Christianity, and different sects. And when she came to read the Quran, she started by reading from right to left, Surah Al-Fatiha. She said, I swear, once I finished it, I fainted. I could not believe myself that there is such book that people were so negligent and ignorant about. That has to be the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And she said, I accepted Islam simply after reading Surah Al-Fatiha and knowing
the first chapter.
It's
7 verses.
7 verses.
The Arabic itself, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke the Quran. So this is by itself is a medicine.
It is a word of Allah.
It's a word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It goes into the heart.
It was not created, rather Allah spoke it out.
The entire staff at Huda would like to wish you a wonderful and blessed Ramadan.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. We're going to go for some questions for the audience. I think we have one over here. Assalamu alaikum.
I want to thank Sheikh immensely for being with us. And I'm extremely happy to meet my brother Malik Evangelitus.
Thank you very much.
Sheikh, my question goes like this. As we all know, Ramadan is forthcoming. Do we have to, as we had the moon is sighted, do we have to make a special intention for Ramadan, or we just take it on because we know Ramadan is coming?
Right. When it comes to intentions, it's one of the pillars of fasting, because the two pillars of fasting, to make the fasting of the month of Ramadan valid, is that the intention to fast and to abstain from the things that breaks the fast. So without the intentions, a person does not fulfill this act of worship. And that's why the issue of having one intention before the month of Ramadan starts, or you need to have an intention for every day of the month of Ramadan. And this is a valid differences of opinion. If you ask me, is to take the intention every day. But what is the meaning of having the intentions that you're fasting the next day? It's not something that you would come before Fajr and say, I have the intentions to fast tomorrow. Or even inside, like you would stop and focus. And then you'll be, you know that you're going to fast the next day. There's no such a thing. Intentions meaning that you know that you're fasting the next day. But why this is important, and I'll give you an example which is very important. If someone slept before Fajr, right, and he woke up after Maghrib, would he have to make up this day or not?
That's an excellent question.
Right? Those who would say that you have to have intentions every day, this person didn't have intentions. Or I'm sorry, the example is that you slept before Maghrib and you woke up after Fajr. So you find yourself during the day, but you didn't have intentions during the night. So those who would say that you have to have intentions every day, they say you have to make up this day, because you were not awake during the night to know that you're fasting the next day. So having the intentions meaning that you ate suhoor, which is a blessed meal before Fajr, that you already know that tomorrow is Ramadan and you're fasting. And definitely we have to have this interaction that we're thinking, we're focused, we're looking ahead, and this is definitely something that is an act of worship, is an important thing.
So intention is a big aspect.
Right.
There are a lot of controversies that come around during Ramadan and before Ramadan, such as the sighting of the moon and other things. How do we look past these? How do we focus on the right things during Ramadan?
In the Muslim countries, of course, this is not a debatable issue. You have the mufti or the leader, whatever. Tomorrow's Ramadan, everybody follows, and that's it.
Exactly.
But where usually this is an issue in the West, because the Muslims, they don't have a head, basically, right? So you find masajid, each masjid making their own decisions. Some people follow other Muslim countries, some people follow local sighting, and it's a issue there. But we need to be, of course, this is something to, in very few seconds, there is something that is not permissible, and that is to solely take the calculations. There's no such a thing. We have to take the moon sighting. But whether to take the local sighting or the one sighting for all the Muslims, especially those who share the night with you, this is a valid difference of opinion. It's okay, for people to differ in these matters. People should follow their communities. They should not do something that is opposite to what their communities are. So whether they follow the Muslims, which is the majority of the ulama actually, if a country, if a place, they share night with you, they saw the hilal, they saw the crescent, then everybody, those who share the night with them, it's the same moon for everybody, and that's the majority of the ulama. But if the community, chooses otherwise, that's fine. But the point is, people need to fast together and break the fast together and have Eid together, and not to have in one community or even one masjid more than Salat, one Eid, and people are fasting, they're fighting with each other, which is definitely a very sad thing.
Actually, if I might add, Khalil, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
Actually, in California and I think all the Western countries, you would have one person, maybe he's originally from Pakistan. So he'll say, I will go by the date of Pakistan, or Egyptians, or anybody. So like you said, in America, one guy might be eating cookies, he says it's Eid, and the other guy's still fasting one day. So that's an interesting point. But Sheikh, you said we can't just go by the calculations. Why can't we just go by the calculation?
No.
I think it was because according to the Sunnah, we're supposed to look at the sighting. But that's all. We're almost out of time. So do you have any conclusionary remarks?
Wallahi, just an advice to myself and everyone, that this is an opportunity that we might not have it anymore. I mean, we don't know how our life will go, and that's why we need to take advantage with every minute in our life, especially in Ramadan. People used to wait for the month of Ramadan for months. So it's a great favor. We should be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and fulfilling the orders of Allah with good feelings and the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and humbling ourselves to the orders from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Thank you very much. What about you, Malik?
Thank you for having me. I've always wanted to be on the show.
Thank you. We'll see you in many more episodes, inshallah. I'd like to thank you, Malik, very much for joining us. And I'd like to thank the Sheikh. Thank you very much. And of course, our in-studio audience. Thank you guys very much. We hope you enjoyed this episode, the special Ramadan episode, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your Ramadan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but do not ever quit. Success is a failure turned inside out. Let's talk and clear the clouds of doubt. Success is a failure turned inside out. Let's talk and clear the